Let's talk about some things that you should never do with your credit card. Credit cards can be very unforgiving. So if you make a mistake because you just didn't know, then your credit score suffers and your ability to get new credit or to get new credit on good terms with good interest rates also suffers. And there are actually a lot of things that you can do with credit cards that you shouldn't do. Now, if you've made any mistakes with credit cards in the past, comment below and let me know what you did and how it affected your credit or your credit card, and also what you did to correct it. Also, if you're new to the channel or you're watching one of my videos for the very first time, my name is Ian and I post videos here on YouTube every single day on topics relating to making money and personal finance. So if you'd like to see more of these videos, give this video a thumbs up, I'll really appreciate it. And also consider subscribing to this channel and turning on all the notifications. And that way you'll be able to get the updates every day when I post a new video here. So let's get into all the things that you should never do with a credit card. And the first one is using too much of your available credit. So even though you have a credit limit of a certain amount, you should never max your credit card out. So for instance, let's say you have a credit limit of $1,000. That means that you can spend up to $1,000 at any given time on that credit card. However, banks and credit card companies constantly monitor how much of your available credit you use, and they use this to calculate how much of a risk you are. So if you spend the entire $1,000 and you always have the card maxed out, your utilization rate will go up and your credit score may go down a few points. You may also not get approved for higher credit limits, and even if you do, it will be much less than what you could have gotten approved for if you were to keep your spending lower on your credit card. So I found that anywhere between 1 to 30% is a good amount to spend from a credit card. However, if you want your credit score to go up, I found that keeping your utilization rate as close to 1% is best. Either way, just don't go over 50%, and if you do, try to pay that balance off as quickly as possible and not keep such a high balance on your credit cards. Now, I know you may be thinking, well, Ian, if I should keep my spending below 30% of my available credit, then I would only have about a third of my actual credit limit to use, and that's true. However, the way to get around this is to increase your credit limit. So if you expect to be using $1,000 per month from a credit card, then you want to ideally have a credit limit of around $3,500 or more so that you can use that amount of credit without having your utilization rate getting or going down too much. So keep this in mind, especially if you're trying to build your credit or you want the best chance of getting a credit limit increase. Now, the second thing that you should never do with a credit card is to close the credit card account. Now, this one is actually very, very important, and this is why you should only apply for credit cards that you can keep forever. So here's what happens. The age of your credit also accounts for a percentage of your credit score. The way you calculate this isn't from the day you first started having a credit card or some form of credit. It's actually calculated by adding the age of your oldest credit account and your latest or newest credit account, and then dividing that number by the amount of credit lines that you have. So some examples would be me having a credit card that is 5 years old. It's my only credit card. The age of my credit would be 5 years because that's how long I've had the credit card for. However, if I were to open a new credit card account, I would then add 5 and 0, which is still 5, and then divide it by the number of credit lines I have, which is now 2. So my credit age is now 2.5 years and no longer 5 years. This is why when you open a new credit card account, your credit age goes down. Now, this is a good example. A bad one would be me having that credit card for 5 years and then opening a new credit card and then closing the old one. The age of my credit would then go to 0 as I would be starting over because I lost the account with 5 years on it. Now, this may actually be calculated by months and not years, but it's the same principle. So you never want to close a credit card account, especially if it was one of your very first credit cards. This is why it's very important that your first credit card be a very good one, where even if you stop using it after a while, it doesn't have any annual fees, and that way you can keep the account open and make small charges to it every couple months just to keep that credit account open. So keep this one in mind as well. Now, the next thing that you should never do, which is more of a myth and also affects your utilization rate, is the myth that you have to make a large purchase on your first credit card and pay only the minimum each month in order for you to build your credit score. That is far from the truth, and I know this because I had a 300, which was or is the lowest possible score anyone could ever have. It took me 6 months to get to a 690, and then in another 3 months I was at a 750. How did I do this? Well, I never ever made any large purchases on the credit card, and I never paid any interest or minimum payments. I got a secured credit card and the limit was $500. I made a deposit of $2,500 so I could have a higher credit line, which also increased my credit score. I then only used the card to purchase fuel once per month, and I didn't even fill up using the card. I would spend only about $5 on fuel once per month and pay it off in full. That's all I did for about 8 to 10 months, nothing else. My credit went from a 300 to a 750, and I never made a big purchase, and I never paid any interest. So you don't have to pay any interest and make minimum payments every month. The trick here is to leave the balance on your card for as long as you can. So if your billing cycle ends on the 1st of the month and your payment is due on the 24th of the month, instead of paying the balance on the day after receiving the statement, you can wait a couple days before the due date. This is something that I've noticed that just works. If you pay the balance immediately, it still shows up on your credit, but if you let it sit there for 3 weeks, it actually shows up on your credit that you still have an active balance. And if you keep the balance at around the same amount every month, then it will show that you have the same balance. And in my case, this was about $5 every month, even though I kept paying it off. So that's a little trick that you can probably use. Now, I know having someone adding you as an authorized user on a credit card is good because it helps you out a lot and gets your score moving. However, I really don't like the idea behind it, and while it will work, I would highly recommend that you don't become an authorized user and you don't make anyone else an authorized user on your credit cards. Secured credit cards are easy to get, and you shouldn't really need to be an authorized user. The problem I have with this is that if the other person misses a payment or does anything bad with that credit card, your credit score is going to suffer as well. Think about it. You become an authorized user, and in 6 months when you have a relatively good credit score, this other person misses a payment. Your score would go down without it being your fault, and now you have to work on rebuilding your credit score by yourself, which adds an additional 6 or more months to your timeline. So I would recommend that you get a secured credit card on your own and a secured personal loan, or both actually, and I have a video about how I managed to get both, and it didn't cost me much. Now, finally, I want to mention that you should never carry a balance on your credit card. You can, but you shouldn't, and the reason is this: you get ripped off. The average APR on a credit card is 19 to 21%. If you have a balance on that credit card each year, you're paying 20% more on whatever you use the card to purchase. If you keep a balance on the card at all times, it just means that you're always spending 20% in interest. It's a very bad deal. Instead, get a credit card that has no fees and gives cash back, and use it for only things that you could pay for with cash. Now, there are a couple more things that I probably should have mentioned earlier on in this video, and one being never closing a credit card account. And actually, I did mention that, but you should also remember to not forget about your older or your oldest credit cards. So if you have a credit card which doesn't charge you an annual fee, but you just don't use it anymore, you don't want to toss it away, because in about 6 months of not using it, the credit card company may close the account, which will hurt your credit. So if you have older credit cards that you don't use, find a way to put a small charge on them every couple of months just to keep them active. It could be purchasing groceries twice per year, fuel, online shopping, maybe a subscription service that you have, or anything really. Now, I think this covers a lot of things that you shouldn't do with a credit card, and if you avoid these, you'll have a much better credit score, access to higher credit limits, and you'll also pay little to no interest on your credit cards. If there are any other tips that you found to work well with having or managing credit cards, be sure to comment them below so we can see what they are as well. I hope you guys found this video very helpful, and if you'd like to see more videos just like this one, then give this video a thumbs up, as that's the way these videos get recommended to more people here, and I'll really appreciate it. And also, don't forget to check out some of my other videos here on credit cards, banking apps, savings accounts, investments, ways to make money, and much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to turn on all notifications for this channel, as that's the only way you'll be able to get the updates of when I post a new video. And remember, I'll be posting a new video here every single day on YouTube. I'm at about 230 days of posting consistent videos every day now. Now, I'm also leaving a couple links down below to free cashback offers and free stuff, so be sure to check all the links down below in the description for all kinds of free stuff. Once again, I hope this video was very helpful. All the best with your credit cards and your credit, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow.